All right. Good evening and welcome to the Eureka Springs CAPC workshop, July 12th, 2023, 5 p.m. And we've got some topics for discussion tonight. Y'all ready? Okay. Solicitation policy. This kind of came out of just to have a little order of how people approach us. I don't know that it's formalized. We've talked about different bylaw type things. This I think the intent is to just publish on our website so the public will kind of have a good feel of the process, and also to kind of just make it smooth, keep politics out of it, things like that. And this was drafted by I think Watkins, our attorney. His suggestion.
It sounds like a good policy. The only question that I have is the very last sentence, letter B. Just because, and the reason I say that is because of the history. I don't know how to say this any more gently, but with the history of commissioners and whatnot, that we should be as transparent as possible. Because it says should or should not be included for consideration on any upcoming commission agenda. I know that we can, at the time of a meeting, add something to the agenda, which I think the previous line discusses that.
It says subject to the right of any member of the, before all that, subject to the right of any member of the commission to propose an agenda item. That always would overrule.
Right.
And we can't add to the agenda at the meeting.
Yeah.
The person has to propose it, someone has to second it,
Yeah.
and everybody has to be a majority vote. But we caution people doing that if we want people in the community to come and give input to it.
Yeah.
We don't want topics that are going to go, let's,
Yeah.
change everything and not give people the opportunity to come
Yeah.
and talk about it. So
Okay.
little procedural things that most people wouldn't care about.
Other than that, I have no issues with it.
So do we have a policy manual?
Well,
I'm kind of confused.
We were talking about how to establish bylaws, but then we look at the ordinance and stuff. So I just, this is one of those things I think that's, there just needs to be that little bit of clarity.
Right.
And there, I'm sure we're going to run into other things that
Oh, yeah.
we want clarified that can be added. I thought maybe those previous bylaws, the way they had structured them, might cover some of this stuff, and maybe it would have, but we didn't really get anywhere with those, and there was some confusion on probably all of our parts with it. So I just suggest that if we want to adopt this as a formal policy to publish, then it can be published on our website, but we need to vote on it at the next meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
It does have section 4, so it's referencing.
It's referencing he's saying, yes, the commission shall have the authority, we have the authority to establish fair, transparent, competitive procedures for procuring and approving any contracted services deemed necessary by the commission. And then he's saying, yep, that's what the commission should do, create a policy to deal with situations.
Cool.
Yeah.
So we'd have to bring this to the meeting and vote on it.
And then, any other discussion on that topic?
So that goes on the agenda.
No. Mark, Chris?
I think everybody should be on their toes. If somebody approaches you, make sure just refer them
To Scott, yeah.
to Scott. And that's the way we do it. I listen to people, but then I say, but I'm not the person to contact with Scott.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I usually get emails, and I just say, here's Scott's email address and phone number.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for us to discuss things with people and to, but, yeah, I mean, that's what we hired Scott for. So, I sent him to Scott. Meeting structure, Mr. Holyfield.
I bounced around about this quite a bit. I really think that we should go to one meeting a month and then have workshops as needed. And workshops should be major topic things like changing advertising agencies or outreach for the community, things that we really need to hash and talk about and stuff. I don't see a need for 2 meetings a month or a workshop and a meeting. That's just my opinion. I'm retired. I have time. I can come here and sit all day, But I know you all have businesses to run. And I think one of the reasons we're having trouble filling these other 2 vacant seats is time commitment. It's one. And I know a big part of that is also the history of this commission last year scares a lot of people. They don't want controversy. They don't want to get involved in a big ongoing whatever that was. And that's definitely improved, and I think we're heading in the right direction as a commission, and I think we all could take a bow for being part of that. But I think we might be able to attract more people if it's 1 meeting a month, less time commitment, and have these workshops as needed. And I think we talked about this in the past, and Scott, didn't you say you thought 1 meeting a month would be sufficient for our support for you?
I think it would. I would like to try it anyway.
Yeah. And it's not written in stone. We'd always change it back again.
There's no legal precedent that says we have to have 2,
No,
right?
our bylaw
Okay.
said at least once a month.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I mean, I can think off the top of my head, we're probably going to have a workshop the next 2 months because of the things going on.
yeah.
There's a we've been talking about having one with having some kind of like talk to Damon, Scott has, but about pulling together maybe some of the I'm trying to think of the right word. Well, not necessarily just stakeholder, but I mean, can be interpreted different ways. Not just the taxpayers, but maybe some of the heavier weight professionals in lodging, restaurant, activities, and retail, and having a workshop, because we have to rebid our services, and it's good to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to hear what our business owners, retail included, all business owners, I want to hear their opinions, because that one small opinion that is heard that we never thought about could be a driving force in our campaign. So there's no bad opinions to be said at a meeting, but I want to make sure that when we select the correct advertising agency, that we have the marriage of the right agency along with our goals and our businesses here in town. That's really important to me.
Yeah.
I
So-
totally agree.
Hopefully in August, everyone, we can do a workshop
Yeah.
of what we're describing.
I think our
So-
workshops may be better attended when there's something special.
Yeah.
And really advertise it and say, this is something big. But if it's happening every couple of weeks,
Yeah.
I mean, I love seeing Mr. Henke, but he's our audience, It's like, if people cared enough about input. And last year, people were here voicing their concerns and definitely had every right to do that because this commission was floundering in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
But I think a workshop, you have one workshop, or you have a workshop when you need it, really advertise it, be real focused on a topic. And then we can also have the workshop an hour before a meeting. We don't even have to have a special date or something, so we
Right.
can tie everybody's time up for another date. Mr. Henke?
You have a nice segue into what I'd like to add, and I just thought I'd plug it in here because it fits so well. And I think because of the history that you're referring to, there's some apprehension. Basically, even tonight, we were talking about, well, maybe we could bring some stakeholders in, and all I'm trying to do is connect the dots. This whole thought process started was Scott Smith at Turpentine Creek talking about an expensive study that they did to show the economic impact on Eureka Springs, and he was quoting off some of the numbers, and I was like, have you brought this to the CAPC and relayed what you paid for to learn to them? And he's like, nah, I don't, just hadn't done it, because a lot of people haven't engaged because of the turmoil that has been there. And I'd like to just get past that, so that as I formulated that and brought them to the table, they're like, well, don't you feel like now they feel like we're coming and saying, this is what we want you to do, and this is how you should be doing it, and you're doing it wrong, which was the contention from the last commission. I think everybody's super sensitive to be like, we don't want to tell them what to do, and we don't want to be perceived, because boom, there goes that wall back up. Right. And I'm like, I feel like you guys are a good commission. You're working good together. You're taking all the inputs and considering how that lays over the city and how the future budget is going to be laid out based on what exists right now. And I suppose that's the pieces of the equation that I've seen in the past, is you have large players with marketing budgets that are effective at bringing their crowd to town, because everybody knows the Passion Play crowd is slightly different than the Turpentine Creek crowd, right. Slightly different than the Crescent Basin crowd, slightly different than the motel sector. And then you have your different restaurants that are going to be a lot of McDonald type people coming to town, and there's a lot of Rogues Manor / Local Flavor / whoever's grotto type person. So really getting a comprehensive mindset around that takes these individual operators coming in front of you and saying, hey, this is where we're headed this year, and it allows you to make a decision based on who the right partner is from an advertising agency aspect to say, yeah, now that we have all these pieces of the equation, who really lays over this as someone who can take this and turn it into synergy and push us forward. Yeah. That's what I would like a workshop to do, and I certainly was sensitive to people's mindset that are like that. I don't want to tell them what to do. So that's just the honesty of where we're at with that. So, and we've done this before from a Chamber of Commerce aspect. I'm not even trying to bring this is kind of a Damon Hinkey concept at this point. Happy to make it a Chamber of Commerce aspect if that's what we want to do. And that would be worthwhile on certain levels to communicate out who can participate, and it can be an open mic situation, whatever you want to do. But we have done this before, and I think to your point, it was wrapped around the actual, it was when we were going for Miles Partnership versus Paradise. I think there was a third player in there for the advertising agency, and everybody met at the convention center to kind of put their 2 cents on where we were headed and what the future of the overall advertising might be.
Right.
That's great. Thank you for starting the conversation last meeting, and we've been talking, and I think kind of like what I was describing, we're trying to have more of a precise approach than a big approach, because we're coming into an important decision, and we get too much. It's too much, and so we want to segment into those areas with some really good information data from those partners. But I think there's going to be lots of opportunities down the road to have a broader committees that have voices or at least input. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. And I'm just going to add in there, in 2016, 17, right in there was actually multiple roundtables put on by the chamber that had restaurants come in, retail come in, lodging come in, and it wasn't necessarily driven toward the CAPC. It was really just a community learning from each other type situation. So that can be a chamber or a CAPC event. But I do think because of the new operators that we have in town, it is time to bring people back around the table just as a social get to know you, we're all headed the same direction type event.
I think this round needs to be pretty focused.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I think also really don't need 2 meetings is a nod to Scott and his staff that they're doing such a great job. We don't have to micromanage by meeting every 2 weeks and
Thank you. I want to make
looking over
sure,
their shoulder and everything. So
I want to make sure that the dollars we spend for advertising, that we can complement other businesses, and we may not match up, but we're going to match up where before we weren't. it's like a puzzle in front of you. We start putting the pieces together and the picture comes out and it's about Eureka. So I'm excited about that because it's going to be good. There's nothing bad going to come out of this at all.
Cool. Well, if anybody out there in TV land has an objection or a problem with us going to one meeting a month, please come to our next meeting and voice your opinion about it, so.
Yeah, the
we
turnout at
want
the
it.
workshops is, I mean,
Yeah, but I think they're just not focused enough, and I think if you
Right.
really just have them when you need it and really focus on this topic and really hit it hard.
I like the concept because that means there's only one time of the month I'm going to get stressed out instead of two.
Yeah, there you go. We want you to focus on doing the other
I'll
stuff.
focus on one major stress out.
Perfect.
it's usually a glad fest, a big praise fest to Scott, so I don't know what the problem is. This is when your ego gets filled up the most.
I don't think you hear, I don't think
No,
you
I
hear
don't
us.
pay any attention to that.
Okay.
I guarantee I don't.
All right,
So I'd like to ask for the agenda for our next meeting that we put
okay.
meeting structure back on there, and so we can vote on it,
Okay.
make a decision. And hopefully, if anybody has any input on it, they can come and talk about it at that time.
I'd just say we'll need to be fairly thoughtful of if we want a workshop, like planned out. We can't really do a short
It's all
notice.
exchangeable. If we need it, we could do
Yeah.
something, we'll give it
Yeah.
a try and see how it works
Yeah.
if it fits for
I
us.
personally like it, coming in an hour early at 5 for a workshop
I
and
like
then having a
that too.
meeting at 6, so
Yeah.
we just do it all at one time.
Yeah,
And,
6 o'clock.
yeah. Thank you, Steve. I didn't know where you're going. I thought you were going more meetings. Because that's where
You don't
used-
know me very
That's
well,
where
do
you
you?
were for a while. You're wanting more meetings. Audit report, Scott?
Trying to find, okay.
So I believe we had the annual audit, and it's for 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, let me read my notes here. I responded to legislative audit on May 23rd of a letter dated May 11th of 2023 regarding the findings for 2021. The finding that they wrote and included into the city audit, because we are a subsidiary or a separate entity, was under professional services. And to make the long story short, I can read this document that I wrote to them. Probably I should. Under AL finding ALM 10323-025 for year ending 2021, professional services. And I gave each of you a copy of that. That's the first page. If you look under that section, it says commission personnel. And under that, in parentheses, is the ordinance listing itself. If you'll notice, it says about the second line, advertising specialties, and it lists those specific duties that fall within that advertising specialty category. What legislative audit was saying that since we spend more than $35,000 a year in the year 2021, that services, in this case, advertising agency should have been bid, even though we were in a 3-year contract with them. So this is something that legislative audit wrote, even though we had been in a contract with them many years prior to this, okay? So for some reason, they decided that they were going to write it up in 2021. And my response is listed below. We concur with the audit recommendation listed below. We will ensure that competitive bids are obtained for commodities and/or professional services in excess of $35,000 based on Eureka Springs Code 2.56.07 listed above. The City Advertising and Promotion Commission of Eureka Springs has the authority to enter contractual services for, quote, professional services as defined under section 2.56.07. And then my response is, though the state of Arkansas code defines specific professional service as being exempt from the bid procurement process, the position of the CAPC was advertising specialties were exempt and considered a professional service. It should be noted that the CAPC has utilized the services of our primary advertising agency for several years with annual expenditures exceeding the bid limit threshold. To my knowledge, Arkansas Legislative Audit has only brought this to the attention of the CAPC as an audit reportable finding for the year 2021. We concur with the recommendations of Arkansas Legislative Audit, but respectfully request that the audit finding for the year 2021 concerning professional services be reported as a supplemental finding. They toned down the finding quite a bit based on that response. So I'm not upset about it. I didn't even start here till I think October 2021, but this is something I inherited, but we addressed it and we will bid. There was also a situation on the second page there where it lists the price purchase of equipment exceeding the bid limit. My response was we concur with audit recommendation of ensuring that competitive bids are obtained for commodities and or professional services in excess of $35,000. It should be noted that the cost of shipping, $1,500, and permit inspection of $500 were variable costs associated with this purchase and related to post-COVID effects on the national economy. It should be noted that the CAPC funded the purchase and installation of a platform lift for the purpose of transversing handicapped citizens with disabilities onto the city-owned auditorium venue. We don't own this, the city does. Okay, if you look at the breakdown, the total price was $35,955, and they wrote it as a finding because we exceeded the threshold by $955. And the reason it was exceeded was because of $1,500 in freight and $500 we had to pay the Arkansas Department of Elevator. And so I'm not sure why they wasted the time to write that up, but basically shipping and payment of a permit drove it over. And that was the findings written in the report presented to City Council by Michael last Monday or Tuesday? Monday. So that's the synopsis of it. And I've included in the packet the breakdown and the cost so that you would have information in front of you to have at your disposal.
Our city financial director, Michael Akins, presented the whole audit to the city council Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think it looks pretty good. I've been involved in some audits before, and you have a long laundry list of things you got to fix. And the city's doing pretty good. Actually, he said the auditors will be back, I think, next month for 3 months to start the next year. So
Yeah.
they were so
So you're not done
impressed.
yet?
Pardon me?
You're not done yet.
Well, you know,
Yeah,
They'll be
but
back
yeah,
in a couple
but
of
it
weeks.
looks good. I mean,
the beautiful thing about this is for the year they're coming to audit, I've had everything ready to go for months.
Good.
It's in a box. I'm waiting on them. I've been waiting on them for 3-4 months now. It's ready to go.
Cool.
So there won't be any chasing checks and documents. It's right there ready to go and it's documented. So I don't have a problem responding to Arkansas Legislative Audit. I've testified before them in the past on certain issues not related to this entity, but in defense of an entity I worked for. I've worked in audit many years prior to this venture here with the city. I understand how it works, but I'm also going to defend what I think is right. And we intentionally did not do anything wrong, but I'm not going to be picked on either. So
Yeah.
So sorry.
No, go ahead.
Did we only get one bid for this elevator? Was that their issue?
my recollection on this, now, number one, when I inherited this, this situation was worked out with the prior tourism director, and I wasn't involved directly with this, okay? In doing my research to find out, answer that question, there was only one vendor in this particular COVID period of time where you couldn't even get toilet paper delivered, much less an elevator.
I,
I remember that.
Yeah.
elevators, sometimes you
So
only have
special.
one.
Oh, no, I understand. I just want to make sure that, you know, even if there aren't three, at least we can show proof that we
Yeah.
looked for three
Yeah.
moving forward.
I will say that if there's ever any question, he's
Yeah.
on the extreme cautious side.
Yeah.
Well, I knew this was prior
Yeah.
to all of us,
Right.
so.
Well, and like I've been through a lot of government audits in senior living, and you can pull your hair out on where some of it's coming from
Oh, yeah.
with the inspectors. And just like the agency thing, I mean, there's a lot of A&Ps that don't bid, and they're, it's like, okay, you might have one auditor tell you one thing, and then the next year they tell you something else. Some of that's pretty darn frustrating.
Or they change auditors.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, interpretation,
Yeah.
and they won't answer questions, and you have to file an appeal. It can be frustrating. But that's why we said we had to rebid it, was because of this. Now, part of the process was Scott has to follow certain processes, you know these, Scott, to then, it has to go, what, to the state and the city, your responses and stuff before it's publicly
Oh,
released?
yes.
Okay.
Until,
I had to sign it or I wouldn't have known about it.
yeah,
probably.
until the Arkansas Legislative Audit Committee meets, none of this can be discussed or disclosed in public. Once they met, which was 10 days ago, I believe, then it became public. Then it was the time that, and then of course, Michael presented it timely at that manner at your next meeting. And that's what I'm doing here with our meeting, is presenting the findings. So there's a specific order of presentation that's required to be followed. So I had wanted, and I had talked to some people. I said, I really want to get this out to my commission because I don't want them to find out through anyone other than myself. And I was told you cannot disclose that until after the commission in Little Rock meets.
I wanted it because we've got to rebid and to kind of
Yeah.
explain that further, but anyway.
So that's the reason that it's coming today to you.
Do we need it documented that it's presented to the commission?
I don't believe, there's nothing wrong in doing that. There's nothing wrong with having that in record at all. But is it a requirement? No. Is it good business? Yes. That's my opinion.
So we'll just
We'll
put it
add-
on the agenda for next meeting?
Yeah.
I'm fine with
I would
that.
put approval of audit response for 2021 for the CAPC, what
Okay.
I would list it as.
We'll do a
But I think
motion
that's
for
good
At least in
business.
the minutes.
It's in the record.
Okay, sounds good. Anything on that? So the advertising bid process,
This process has developed over months, and I have obtained copies of most agencies in this area and looked at their bid that they let out, or requests for proposals and quotations. There's several different ways they've done this. And then we
who'd you look at?
Hot Springs, Bentonville, I did the NADA, Branson. So that was a pretty good sample. And using that information kind of directed me how to create our own Eureka Springs advertising agency bid, for lack of a better word. And as I went through that, I was conversing with our attorney and getting feedback. And so where I'm at right now is I've vetted this and gave it to our attorney and said, I want you to review this. So he's in the process of reviewing it for a final time and going to make recommendations and possibly even add some components to the request for proposal, is what it's going to be called. But internally on our staff, what we're doing is we're going to have a list of what we expect this advertising agency to possess. Social media, influencer skills, there's going to be limits. It will not be general, such as, are you in the advertising agency? It won't be something general. It'll be specific requirements to answer questions so we can understand whom we're going to be working with for a year or more. So it'll be specific questions and skill sets required for them to be successful in being our advertising agency. So we've started that process, and we should have that part complete here in a few days. So, honestly, I really feel like after I've listened and read other proposals from other entities, other cities in the state, when we're finished, we should probably have one of the better bid documents the state of Arkansas when it's done. I believe that.
So this is open, going to be an open bid process, right?
Yes, what we will do, what the law says is you have to publish this in paper of circulation. I will post it in a local paper here, also with the Arkansas Times, also with the major paper in Northwest Arkansas. It'll be posted on our website, on the city's website. There seems like a place. By doing that, we've met the bid requirements of publicly announcing we're looking for some responses to our proposals. And then from that day on, we start the daily count. Usually it'll be at least 30 days before we close the response. And during that period of time, they will call and request submission of a proposal. We will document who called, time, how to get back in touch with them in case we have addendums, which I don't expect, but we could. So we have a record of who called, when they called, who called, and when we sent it out, making sure that we had a meeting of the minds and they know when the deadline is. So once the deadline is passed, then we no longer accept any other solicitations that come in. And from that point, we start evaluating what we have. Then we decide when we're going to ask for presentations, and then we will evaluate those, and then we'll have a recommendation. So that's probably, I would guess, 60 days from day one. From the day it hits the paper, probably 60 days.
So that puts us in September.
Might be a little longer, not much. I can't afford to let it go out too far. But that's the legal process the state wants us to follow.
We have questions, suggestions? So in September, we'll get to review your recommendation, is it from this process?
Yes.
And/or recommendations?
Yeah, let me back up a little minute. The reason for the detail involved with this proposal is to do our due diligence to avoid a protest on the bid, which would stall the bid from being awarded. And so that's why I'm letting our attorney vet this well, because we've got $1,100,000 budget right now that we're spending. So there are going to be people anxious to bid on it or to have it disqualified and rebid. So I want to make sure that legally we've done the best we can to present the best document to avoid that bid protest. That's why we're taking the time on this one. So back to your question, the process in the bid would be a presentation.
So how do you, I've got a question. So how you just said we were spending 1.1 million. So how are you determining what might that be next year?
That's a good question, and that's something we'll develop in-house within the next 2 or 3 weeks with that answer of what we can do internally and or justify filling a position. But I firmly believe that we can have a budget with an outside agency of $300,000 to $400,000 versus $1.1 million. Paying them, but I may have to have a staff member or two.
So that's there's some discussion. There we are.
So there's only so many hours in the day, and when you don't have a full staff, you can only do so much. But from the skill sets we have now, we can trim that 1.1 back quite a bit.
That sounds too aggressive to me, trying to get to 3 to 4. Just saying.
That's the goal. It may be 6, but that's the goal.
Because, I mean, that's just me. I can't speak for everyone, but we need to spend a lot on media, you know. Hopefully we can pare some of that high dollar labor down, but the campaigns themselves.
Okay, now, you're talking about a different
Okay.
subject now.
Maybe.
I'm talking about what we would use from an advertising agency that's bringing expertise to the table that we don't have,
Yeah.
such as where's our
So
markets?
you're not counting the media buys?
No,
Oh, okay.
no.
Well, so
No.
really, you're talking about cutting down the labor, 200,000 maybe.
And that's when we start talking
Okay.
about our budget for 2024.
now-
With influencers and things like that, we need a budget. So the overall difference between the 1.1 million and let's say the 400,000 will be determined by this commission, well, and our group here as to how much we're going to spend on local support, media support. How much are we going to spend on influencers? How much are we going to spend on fam tours, which is those familiarization tours? I mean, there's a lot for 2024 to talk about, but it's all good because now we're going to be in control of advertising and our local, and providing local content on our advertising, but it will be
So
good.
do we need to, so that's my point. So what are you proposing to in your request for proposal? Have you narrowed down? Are you?
I'll have that ready in about,
Okay.
7 to 10 days.
Okay. I thought you were talking the whole so the 1.1 million, I think, or million, whatever it is, I think represents about half of it is labor. Is that right? Right now,
Probably.
the Paradise?
It's probably all labor.
And half of it is the actual services or media.
I don't want to throw any, I know that Paradise is
Well,
listening.
yeah,
and
I'm
I'm not going to throw anybody under the
I'm not.
bus on this
That's
thing.
just- I think that's what we're spending with the agency right now. I think that is roughly.
Well, let me put it to you like this. I can get billed $2,700 for something I can do in an hour.
Yeah,
And that's what I'm talking about, the savings is in
They're
there.
full service, and we needed that in the past, I think. And
Yeah.
so maybe we
You
don't
start
need
cutting
some
that
of it.
out, that's
Yeah.
quite a bit of money.
Maybe we don't in the future. That's why we hired you.
We'll tippy-toe, we'll avoid mistakes as well as we can.
I think it's our responsibility to examine it every year, see what
Yeah.
can we fix, what can we make it cheaper, what's working, what's not working.
More effective.
Yep,
Yeah.
kind of why we're here, isn't it?
I mean, we paid, the thing about being with Paradise and it's, I guess if we pay attention, which we've done, as to what our tax dollars are using via Paradise, for example, we paid, $25,000 or $30,000 for a Zardico membership for 18 months. Well, we have the right to use it, and we're using it. We're not depending on Paradise to give us information. We're combing that to find out where our markets are.
Well, to be fair, some of those things are, I think, you don't know till you try.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, it's-
I don't think they, it was anything more than that.
Well, they needed that tool just like we
Yeah,
do, but
yeah.
we're using that tool is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
imply.
No, I follow you.
You know, so,
But, I mean, in defense, we didn't have a staff before. And
Correct.
there were periods of time where there was major turmoil, and so they stepped in, and if you just look at the results, it's hard to say anything bad, in my opinion.
no,
Now,
they've done a good job.
hindsight, you can say, well, shouldn't have spent so much or whatever, but I just think people did what they had to do or whatever, but, so. Yeah, here comes David.
2 cents in on that. It's relatively new that you have an advertising agency because in the Mike Maloney era, which was just before Lacey, all that was in-house, and this is a perpetual pendulum in Eureka Springs, which isn't a bad thing. It depends on the director and the staff, because you get a lot more bang for your buck when you do things in-house, but then when you don't have the dynamics to complete it in-house, I mean, it's just obvious there, it swings back the other way. We swing the other way. What you're saying is I can put this together. So yeah. I wanted to clarify what I think you were saying was the $1.2 million budget, as far as the ad spend doesn't change, you still have the same amount of advertising. It just, the more you pull in-house, the further your dollars go. Yeah. Okay.
That's right.
Yep. Anything else
About that?
about that?
We're ready to throw everything down and run out the doors. Nope.
You guys good with what Scott's doing with the bid
Yeah,
process?
no, very good, yeah.
He asked me to read his rough draft, and I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm reading. I don't know anything about this, you know?
At least you admit it.
Huh?
At least you admit it.
No, that's not my expertise. I don't even know what my expertise is. So,
You know, Scott could sit here on his laurels and just, rubber stamp everything and keep everything going as they are, but he definitely wants to examine it and make things better, so it's great.
I don't want anyone picking on Eureka,
Yeah.
for sure.
Talking about picking on Eureka, one of our commissioners at the planning and zoning, his commissioner comments was, business is down 26% in Eureka Springs. There's 5 empty stores on Main Street. Things are looking bleak. Do you know what he's talking about?
Sounds like Mr. Ferguson, if I had to put a name on it.
I wasn't going to name names.
Well, that was, I can see him saying stuff like that.
Is
I
there-
don't know. I think when I see things
What's
like that, I
down?
think about why businesses fail, and usually people get into business and they're cash strapped when they get in, and they're living paycheck, daily sales, and they don't understand the dynamics of Eureka and the competition around them, and they don't have a business plan. So I kind of throw that in as the first analysis. So when I see the building closed, there's a reason it closed, and most of the time it's lack of preparation. But
Well, I lived
Not
here
the
10 years,
economy.
and I see business come and go. That's just part of it. And I'll see someone going, oh my God, the town's closing down, the town's closing down. It's like, no, that will close, this will open, this will close, this will
Yeah.
open.
you see a
That's-
lot of
yeah,
that. You
that's
see a lot of people saying,
always
why is
happening.
all this stuff for sale? Well, Eureka stuff is always, there's a cycle.
Right.
And a lot of it has to do with its older operators. You're semi-retired. Damon would know better than anyone, but, like me, you semi-retire, and then you're going to age out at some point. You got to sell or whatever,
Yeah, I think some people move here, starting their little business for the first time, and don't
you need a
realize.
chair.
It's the only thing, I always had this saying that the streets are paved with the crushed dreams of entrepreneurs. But later, as you live here, you learn that that's not actually true. They're not crushed dreams, they are dreams. They wanted to come here, they wanted to have the little shop, and that's why you see a lot of turnover is they did live their dream. It wasn't intended to be necessarily highly profitable from the get-go, to your point,
Right.
on a business plan. And sure, we have great operators that come here and can make money in Eureka Springs, but it takes a plan and some financial backing and some longevity to do it. But I just wanted to chime in there to say that quote, because it does take some time living here to realize that it's not all bad, and you can't point to something and say, oh my gosh, we're down 26% because of these 3 empty storefronts. I've had an empty storefront on Main Street for 2 years waiting for the right person. They're going to be in there in August. I mean, you just have to pick and choose. And take above Judge Roy Beans. That was a restaurant, a totally remanufactured and redecorated restaurant, and the top of that sat vacant for years. He now, in the past 2 years ago, converted that to lodging, and it's a successful situation. You just have to figure out the right dynamic and the right fit if you're really going to be in Eureka and be long-term
Do
here.
you know what he's referring to in the 26%?
No, I don't.
I mean, is sales tax down?
I assume that would be city tax if he had any ends on it. No, I have no idea.
Isn't sales tax?
I don't know what he's talking
Is it down?
about.
No.
I mean,
That's,
CAPC tax isn't
we're
down.
not, the CAPC tax, we're not down.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised. I thought we would be flat this year. I really did. Now, I understand restaurant, there's some inflation.
I think
But even
there
that's
is a little
good.
switch in restaurants and lodging. There's, there's one's doing better and the other one's doing a little worse, but, so
Well,
the numbers look a
The
little bit
lodging's
better.
up.
Yeah,
It-
lodging's up.
Overall, it's up for the year.
So maybe it's the sales and,
Yeah.
and shops.
Part of that, especially on the restaurant side, is, we are having to spend more money
Yeah.
for
The
cost of goods
inflation.
sold.
Yep.
That's true.
So that tax is going to increase because we're spending more money on, then we're having to raise prices and blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
So on the hotel side, I mean, I think everybody here knows you kind of have to pick your price and play the game.
Yep.
I know that at the Wanderoo, you've always got entertainment every weekend, or during the week too. And I think that in this economic time is very important because people come to town, they need to know immediately where to go. Where do they start their journey? And in the past, I don't think social media was as prevalent as it is today, and we pushed social media harder in the past 6 to 9 months than ever before. And maybe this is the positive response to this. So I don't understand when someone makes a comment, we're down. Well, what do you mean down? I mean, where? Not here. So I don't know. Maybe he's talking about housing or, I don't know.
Housings.
I believe,
I don't know.
I believe retail might be hurting.
Now, retail's,
I think retail's hurting.
retail's a different story.
And
I know that art galleries are, especially
Yeah.
from what I've heard.
What is?
Art galleries.
Art galleries. I'll ask him.
Well, see, this is the information necessary to build an advertising campaign in the future that complements all businesses.
Yeah.
I think in the past, we focused on, not intentionally, but lodging and the fooderies. But I think now with our commission and with my staff, it's Eureka. What can we do to make everybody popular? Even if you don't live in the city limits, but you're an attraction to the town, that's Eureka.
people don't, I mean, now, if you got a spa, you know, like, I mean, the Crescent and Basin, they have Wanderoo, you created something to draw people as well. It's not just a hotel room, you know? And
The first year I moved here, I had 26 people visit me from Texas.
Yeah.
And I learned some people want to go look at plants, some people want to go shopping in art galleries, some people want to go clothing shopping.
Yeah.
And shopping is an activity.
it's a draw.
It is.
It's something
Yes.
we have to include.
It's the busiest thing in town. Downtown, people walking around, this is the number one activity. I'm convinced. I can't see anything else that beats that, even close. So we've got to support retail. I mean, that's it.
Right.
And then so then there's that debate. The other activities, like turpentine or passion play or zip lines, those things that draw people in, those should be our partners to try to, we want to advertise that because, well, aren't you doing adventure stuff? So, I mean, kayaking is huge in the summer. Hiking is huge, all of that.
Well, see, all of these comments is what's going to help with our 2024 budget, would build a budget that benefits everyone we're talking about. How can we,
But you have to, yeah,
So
you
that's,
got to rise all the boats.
we're going to have input into that, and I like that.
So what's the status on hiring staff? You have a financial person yet still?
I'm working with one person right now.
For bookkeeping?
Well, two people if you count that. And the person, every time, I want to say this politically, whenever you talk to someone, well, I shouldn't say whenever, most of the time, I have to be mindful. When you talk about coming to work for the CAPC, there's this red flag and there's a cross goes up and there's lawsuits and everything. So that's hard. People don't want to leave something that they're secure in to come on a risky venture. It's been hard. Now, I've got people that apply that are qualified, but they're only looking for a job for 2 months before their old job comes back. But it's an everyday process. The right person will show up.
That's
And I've-
bookkeeping.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as an auditorium position or a promoter position here for the events and for this venue, I'm talking to some people now about that. And should have an answer, a positive answer, very soon.
Cool. That's all I have.
Hats off to the like weather event. I've heard nothing but good.
It was
things.
great. Hey, yeah, let's, for those
That's gotta be scheduled
8
next
people,
year.
no, I think it's like 50 sometimes that watch this.
Yeah.
Hats off to Sam Dudley. So I went, I thought it was about 3,000 people. I may be optimistic, I don't know, but it was a lot of people. And I didn't realize, at first I was in front of the music, and it started getting more and more crowded. And so then we backed off to the soccer field, and then it was like, wow. And there was a lot of people on the soccer field, but they did a great job. When we left, the hats off to Sam is he's the director, and he's driving the shuttle bus
Yeah.
at the end. You know, dude was tired. I saw him that morning because we went down there looking like where we were going to park her and try to hike from the house. But anyway, we didn't, and then we abandoned that plan. So we rode the shuttle back up to Gravity Falls, and hey, dude was leading. He was leading. I'll say that. So.
I spoke to Susan the next day at Parks, and I talked to Sam, and I said, write down everything on your mind that what you can do better before you forget it.
The bus situation, I think, was.
And that was one.
Yeah, you know, you got out of there faster than you get out of Silver Dollar City most of the time, is what I told my wife, because she's like, and I said, hey, you know, we go to Silver Dollar City, we can get stuck way longer than this, but that's challenging, because if you have something in, and this is for us too, when we're talking to people that have events, something to think of. If they have an event down there at Leatherwood, they need to figure out a way to have the ending stagger out. So like with fireworks, boom, it's over, and everyone leaves at once. So what if you have a band after that captures some of the crowd, and some, you know, just anyway, for future events, that's a thought, because it's always going to be a bottleneck problem there.
We have flying cars.
And my family were full of suggestions, so we were really like analyzing that and telling Sam all the things he should do.
I'm sure Sam appreciates
At the end of the day,
that.
when he's tired.
Yeah, he goes, man, I just want to go to bed tonight. Will you shut up?
Did you want to touch on FAM and any requests? Remember the
Yeah, we can talk about that. There's
probably
been
need
chatter.
to talk
So
about
we talked the last meeting about the state group that is coming, a familiarization tour to, and this is something that we should be doing every year. The ball's been dropped by previous stuff not doing it, but obviously we want to have as good a relationship with the state advertising purchasers as we can, because we want them to promote Eureka when they're promoting the state. We would love a great partnership in that. So that's where the plan is to, I guess they're staying at the Basin?
Correct.
Yeah, now I think that's on their dime, and we do a reception there. Then we had talked about the funding request, but it wasn't really a funding request, just needs to be an item we pay for. So then they go trolley to the Opera, Razorback, Fire Tower, and then La Stick. So I think the question has been, there's alcohol involved in that, and the attorney was asked, is that okay for public funds to be used for alcohol? And the answer was, it is.
And the answer was, quote from our attorney, I can find no prohibition against using public funds in a way that includes the purchase of alcohol for an event like this, talking about the event. It said, would the CAPC money be the only source for paying for the event? If not, then certainly the CAPC money cannot be specifically attached to the purchase of alcohol. He said, as I see this, the $5,000 is just going into a pot that is going to be used to pay for this event. This pot may have money in it for various sources, including businesses. Therefore, no CAPC money could be traced as a specific glass of whiskey. So he suggests that if you're going to go, basically what he's saying, if you're going to go and fund a dinner as part of the FAM tour, you either include all amenities, including the wine, as a dinner cost, and not list the wine. But if you do list the wine, then you need to have a cash bar, and it's separate, and it's not part of the $5,000 funding. That's basically it.
That's the suggestion.
Yep.
So I think what Scott's coming from is being super cautious and wanting the commission to give him direction
Can we find out how other commissions have handled these spam tours when it's related to stuff like this?
Yeah.
It's the third-party concept of it is your problem. It's the third, you're not putting on a family.
Yeah.
That's right. That's the problem with this one, is that we're not involved other than handing the money out. And in the past,
But it's not
we're
a-
involved by producing it and bringing them into town. So
Right.
the concept is we take it over,
Yeah.
and then if that's the case,
But there's
then-
nothing illegal or wrong with us paying for this.
according to this, no, there is not.
Right. It's, when you say problem, I'm like, well, there's not a problem.
It gets back to his comment of smart business practice versus
Right.
whether or not.
But this is where we're at right now.
Right,
because
exactly.
of the past.
I think that, yeah, Scott, here's my opinion, is Scott's got full authority to take somebody out to dinner or do whatever it
Right.
is, and if they say, hey, this is the state coming in, I want to be a piece of this to represent appropriately for Eureka Springs, that is on him, and then you as a commission can say, yeah, you have the authority to go out and do the appropriate thing, spend the appropriate money to give the right impression to the right people
Right.
at the right time. That's 100% within his wheelhouse there. The fact that this particular one is different is you don't normally come to the director and say, hey, I've got all these plans, would you mind giving me this amount of pool
Yeah.
of money to go and support that? It's kind of, that's where it gets a little odd in the situation. Now, the only reason that it's like that was that the ball got dropped in the
That's-
past, and
that's
somebody
the
stuck
problem.
their hand up and
That's
said,
right.
I will run with it and do the
Right,
right thing.
right,
And that's
Do you
good.
mind helping me do the right thing?
That's
The basis of where we're at. So in the future, my opinion would be Scott needs to be in on the
That's-
first phone calls to,
Yeah,
and that way you own it.
We established that last
I
time.
agree with that. That's
Going
good.
forward, it's something he's going to embrace in his staff.
Sure.
That wasn't in the past.
No, I agree.
But
this is
moving
where we're
forward, we
at.
have something legally to start the groundwork with,
So-
instead of guessing. I mean, we know where we stand.
Everyone, please jump in. I just said, my understanding, I haven't eaten it with stick. I believe it's a wine pairing is how they do, like cottage inn. And so, to me, that doesn't, it's one thing if you go to Twin Peaks and you're buying everyone shots all, and it's not picking on anybody. I'm just trying to think of a bar type atmosphere. We don't have one in town, but when you're buying shots all night and all that, that's, no, this needs to be professional in business, and wine paired with the meal to me seems,
If it's a fancy dinner
Yeah.
and wine's included in a fancy dinner,
How many people are
That's
coming?
35.
Can Listic, I have not been to Listic, unfortunately. How many can they even hold?
I don't know. I haven't been
it's pretty good
involved.
size.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But I wouldn't say an open bar where people order shots
No.
Yeah.
and mixed drinks and stuff like that, no.
see, I'm a teetotaler, and I think they should have Toppuccino. But that's me.
I don't like coffee, so.
Yeah, that's carbonated water. Does that give you any sense of feeling better or something?
Oh, I feel good. I've got my attorney
Okay.
opinion.
Okay.
I know how to handle it to keep us within the legal limits, and I know the generalization terms I need to avoid, such as I need to ask the question, is there open bar included in this? That's a good question.
Yeah, I would ask that. I would just say no
Explain to
open
me,
tabs.
explain to me what a dinner includes, and if there's a wine pairing, then it's legally, we can afford to pay that with no problem. But if you're going to have a wine pairing and you're going to have a shot bar over here, the shot bar, we're in trouble. I can't pay for that.
Yeah.
And you need to, don't bill me for that.
Exactly.
So I want to see the bill. I want to see it all before it happens, not after.
I think one way to look at it possibly is like, okay, so next year when you're doing these, how are you going to do them? So what would you do? That's what you should expect, right?
Right, I think this is is very good in setting the initial foundation
go.
for how to treat this in the future. And my next question about it was, how is this expensive money going to benefit our town? What are we going to get in return for this, as opposed to bringing people here and hope they write something well about us? I want to know what I can expect from this
Yeah.
if I do this right.
It's building a partnership.
Right.
Exactly.
I want a long-term relation for this investment.
Yeah. It's a good opportunity.
And that's when I come and report to you
Buy me
guys.
dinner and you can get something out of it.
All right. Anything else while we're discussing?
That's all I have.
All right. Cool.
Oh, I'll say this. This is exciting. Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue has always been a huge event in Northwest Arkansas. Huge. And I won't go through the good and the bad and the ugly of it over the years, but the good thing now is Eureka Springs is partnering with Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue as a co-sponsor, and it's not costing us any money. We're building goodwill between the organizations over in that Northwest Arkansas corridor, including JR and others over there that have a lot to do with the same business I'm in, which is tourism. So we have a lot going on in town. We'll be working with that group, and that's starting to come out in the next few days as to that combining of Eureka and Northwest Arkansas with Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. So there will be a lot of people in town. September 20th through the 23rd, we'll have entertainment here in the auditorium each night, and we should see quite a few people in town off their motorbikes, walking around spending money. That's the goal, and staying in town.
Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue is a fundraiser for nonprofit organizations, and I'd really like to see them spend some of their nonprofit money on nonprofit organizations here in town, or at least the county.
That's a good thought. Yeah. That's a
I
really
know
good-
Purple Flower, the Domestic Violence Resource Center, a couple of years ago applied and they turned it down. So I don't know what the status is now, but
So that's
I like
good to
that.
know.
I like
So
that.
I'd like to
That's
see them
good information for
giving our
Scott.
people the money too. If they're going
Yeah.
to pull money out of our community and stuff, they should be
Absolutely.
giving it back.
Good.
I would suggest start to think of ways to keep them on the street. Because in my experience, they check in to the hotel, first thing in the morning, 6 a.m., they're revving those bikes up and they're hitting the trails, and they're not back until 6 p.m. at night, sometimes 8.
And then it's right around town too.
So you got bands, multiple bands.
Yeah.
Right.
Then you've got the parking. So that the thought process is that settled?
I've obtained parking for approximately 500 to 700 motorcycles.
Okay.
And so if I can get 2 people off that bike, they're going to be walking around. And we've got some
Have you established the poker chip thing?
we've got some, I wish we had one.
Poker Road.
We've got some, yeah, go get, if you don't mind, and get some koozies too. We've gotten, one thing I've noticed is that whenever I or my staff goes to something related tourism event, they always provide us with something to take back from that event, and it's something about that town or something, and we don't have that here. So we're starting to build a little bit of a token appreciation, and so I know bikers, when they come to town, I want them to come back and bring everybody else. They love poker chips. They will keep poker chips, and so we went out and had poker chips made for specifically Eureka Springs. And so we want to make sure that they get, I'm not sure how I'm going to disperse that just yet, but we're trying to offer tokens for them to remember to come back with. So there's some
I thought
things.
some of the idea was to get them to go into retail and restaurants.
I'm working on
to
that
get 'em-
part right there.
Yeah.
I'm working on that part. We're so far
To go pick
ahead
'em
of the
up,
game right
you
now.
know,
That's-
for a contest or
Yeah.
something, or it's free tickets or
Yeah.
VIP or something.
I'm trying to work out a situation where if someone comes into a business and they've got that poker chip, that they'll get something or some discount or
That too.
something like that. So to keep them and give them a map of the town and show them how to get around. So there's a plan going into it, but securing the bands and having that September 20th through the 23rd, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Hinkie.
Yeah, thank you. I'll take my opportunity to not necessarily represent myself, but some of the community. I just want to put in the commission's head that there's people so determined not to interact with Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue that they shut their restaurant / business down and leave on vacation. So I do want to make a nod to that to say we're attempting to bring people to town at a time when we're running at a lower capacity for lodging and retail, surely because of the clientele that we're bringing to town. So just keep in mind that rub. That's not my position necessarily.
So repeat the last sentence.
That we're actually not at full capacity at retail and restaurants because operators literally shut their doors. Therefore, we're spending money on bringing people to town which would be great for the people that are open, in my opinion, but we've never spent money and had a director that was actively, I wouldn't say never, in recent history, we haven't promoted Mike's Blues and Barbecue to the level that we're promoting now. I don't have an opposition. I think you guys have a great attitude of you throw stuff on the wall and you see what sticks. But everybody this might have been a workshop to say, we really want to know the overall input of the community. I don't know, that gets to be a dangerous one, but it is, the fact that people are willing to close their business and go out of town in this particular window is a huge statement that maybe it's not the one to accelerate.
We'll have to see how many do that.
Those that close this year will be open next year.
What
I
a
can tell you
miss,
that.
what a miss on a lot of revenue. But that's their decision, you know,
You like that?
and,
I've heard some retail people say because motorcycles don't carry a lot of stuff, they don't buy a lot of stuff. from
Retail,
stores.
yeah.
So
That's-
retail is not a big, even though a lot of stores say, I'll ship for free anywhere, or you buy it, I'll ship it.
yeah, you've got guys that,
But they can't hold a lot on a motorcycle when it comes to shopping. So.
I would be trying to, I'm not a retailer, but I would be trying to stock things that they're interested in,
Yeah.
obviously. Smaller items, the free shipping, they have money, they have a lot of money, typically.
I
Those
want to try
bikes
to,
are
I want to try
not
to work
cheap.
with transit also to help shuttle people from Plainer Hill and around town also.
When I was in Wichita, we bid on the Goldwing Conference and got it. And it was super nice boost to the economy. It's a giant rally. But anyway, I don't think anyone's trying to turn Eureka into the motorcycle mecca of the next Sturgis. But one giant revenue producing event in September sounds pretty nice to me.
You can plan around it.
So, I don't know.
And then right after that, we have Oktoberfest,
Yeah.
right?
Before
So it'll
that.
be busy. It's going to
So
be
then
busy.
You just drink a bunch of beer and forget about it, right?
Some of us don't drink.
I don't drink. Yeah. But if you got a problem, then I don't know. That's not next.
All righty.
All right.
See you next meeting.
We talk about.
Thank you for being here.